Good morning, class. Any doubts? 91 reforms or industry? What do you not understand there? External commercial borrowing. That means borrowing by commercial players outside India. External, I told you that in India, cost of borrowing is high. What all options does a company have to borrow money if it has to take money? One, can take money from. This I told you was a problem. Asset liability mismatch, and also in the last 10 years, we have problems of NPAs here, so cost of financing is high. Usually also cost of financing in India is high because India has perennial problems of inflation. So if there would be inflation, higher interest rate. The other is capital market, bonds or shares. This is not well developed. So they have to go outside India. And when they have to go outside India, that means they have to borrow in external commercial borrowings done by a commercial entity outside India is external commercial borrowing. So maximum amount of times we are borrowing from outside. And borrowing from outside, that means you can be, because if you borrow $100 today, the price is 70, tomorrow if it changes to 80, you have high cost of interest. तो ये movement को control करने के लिए they have to hedge. They have to invest something in dollars so that this movement is covered. The moment they have to hedge, their cost increases. It can be 80. There's a risk, right? If I've taken money at one point of time, after 6 months, 1 year, when I have to return it, this can change. Can this change or not? It can go 60 also. Anyways, it can move in any direction. That means I have to cover for this volatile movement. This is external commercial borrowing. This is why, in fact, there is a instrument also now, which is called as a, we heard of this? Agglomeration benefits we'll discuss today. Have you heard of masala bonds? कभी नहीं पढ़ा न्यूज़पेपर में, कभी नहीं आया मसाला बॉन्ड. Just take last 1 week newspaper only. Hey, what is a masala bond? They are borrowing in what, dollars? Outside. Now this masala bond would be borrowing in rupees. When a company issues a bond in rupees, so what will happen here is the foreign player who is going to buy this bond has to give rupees. In a normal external commercial borrowing, when we issue a bond, the bond is denominated in dollars. The masala bond is a rupee denominated bond where rupees will be received by the player who is issuing the bond. The person, this one, in this case, in the first case, the risk of currency lies with whom? Who has to face the risk here? The company. Who will face the risk here? Foreign player. So masala bond is a rupee denominated bond which is issued overseas to borrow money. The risk of currency is of the foreign player who's investing in the bond and not of the person who's raising money. In a normal external commercial borrowing, it happens in dollars, so the risk of currency lies with the person who is raising the money, not with the investor. In a masala bond, it is with the investor, not with the person who's raising the money. This is a rupee denominated bond. It's masala bond. Similarly, in China, there's a variation of this. This is called as the dim sum bond. Dim sum bond is the same, that it is issued in yuan. If China is issuing a bond in the outside countries in its own currency, it is called as a, the concept of both is same, that issued in the domestic currency outside the borders of the country. Is it clear how this works? Why this is beneficial for the companies over this normal borrowing in dollars? Any other doubts? Transfer pricing. Base erosion, profit shifting doesn't result in jobs. No, wait. Transfer pricing means there are two related companies operating in two different countries. The companies here, transfer pricing always happens as a related party transaction, where a raw material is being sent from this to this. So what happens here is when this raw material is sent and they are the ones who are making the finished goods, I can alter the cost of raw material to get the advantages of tax. Here the tax was low, here the tax was high. So what I can do is I can change the cost of the raw material. So if the finished good is made of $10 and the raw material was coming for $1, I will have to pay a tax on 9. But if I change the value here and I price this as $7 or $8, now I will have to pay 20% only on $3. This is to save taxes. I will change the amount of the transfers I am doing from one firm to another. This will only happen in a related party transaction, because in this case, moving from $1 to $7, this company here would have to pay higher taxes in this country. So they will only do this when they are related and only one firm is paying tax. They will not do if it is an unrelated party. This is why we say the price should be at an arm length principle. Arm length principle means that if whatever price you sell to an independent player who's not related, this is the same price you should charge here. When you are dealing with an arm length player who's separate, who's not related, whatever the price you quote to him, you should be doing here itself. And this arm length principle is often used in the advanced pricing agreements. The tax authorities beforehand know at what price the transfer is going to happen. These are the solutions to capture the tax evasion or tax avoidance happening through transfer pricing. This is a way where global companies can skip paying taxes in one country. Is it clear what is transfer pricing? A lot of times these terms are mentioned in the news. Asset bubble. The whole idea of an asset bubble is, in any particular asset, be it stocks, be it land, be it gold, any particular asset, what is happening? The value of the asset doesn't change, but the price changes. Why? Because there are a lot of speculations and rumors that asset might gain in value because of something that is going to happen in the future. So something that is going to happen in the future will create a hysteria today and people will start demanding it more. People will demand it more, the price will rise. But the value has not changed because it is based on a underlying asset value is not changing. If the underlying asset value is changing, then it is not a bubble. Bubble always forms when on a very small amount of asset you create a very big price rise. This is an asset bubble, that the value does not change, but the price has changed because people think that it has value. Perceived value बन जाती है कि शायद यहाँ बढ़ेगा price. For example, cryptocurrency. This was very common. Everybody thought that the price of cryptocurrency is going to rise. Nobody realized कि उसकी value कहाँ से आ रही है. What is the value of the cryptocurrency? It did not change. The prices improved too much, and one of the external events or any event that happened, and the bubble burst. And the bubble burst, people lost all of their money. This is how an asset bubble is formed. And most of the times this asset bubble, this demand and price rise happens when people start investing money from outside. Foreign direct investment is what brings in a lot of money, tries to create a perception that the value is going to rise. So everybody starts investing. This is how they can destabilize the economies, by bringing in money and creating asset bubbles where the value did not rise, but the price definitely rose because of demand. और ये demand काफी बाहर के लोगों ने investment से बनाई. They are the ones who are fueling these speculations and rumors. Mostly common in land market, where you think the prices of the land are increasing, there might be some development, and then you're not even getting the base amount. This is what is your asset bubble. How are services taxed? Just like goods are taxed, वैसे service tax होता है. Price increase on raw material to save tax on the paper. So it is legal. This is what I'm saying. Legal be here, you can capture it also. This is tax avoidance. But if you know what the arm length principle is, then it becomes illegal. This is tax evasion. Because how would the company know, or how would the country know कि price क्या है raw material का? So it could be both tax evasion and tax avoidance. जब तक पकड़ा नहीं जाता, this is avoidance. तभी raid पड़ती है. This is why the income tax authorities try to find out what all transactions happened. The recent raid that happened on BBC, that was on transfer pricing. That they have transferred a lot of goods and services to their home country where they had overpriced their goods, overpriced their services. That means India was not getting the taxes. The same thing happened with MI, Oppo and Vivo. उनके भी offices raid किए थे because they were sending in a lot of money outside India, not paying the taxes here, using these transfer pricing techniques. Transfer pricing एक general term है that at what price will you transfer the good. This is a technique used to exploit taxes. Is it clear? सी लॉन्ग टर्म लोन्स, द आइडिया इज लॉन्ग टर्म लोन्स तभी दे पाएंगे जब उनके पास लॉन्ग टर्म पैसा आएगा. बिग बैंक्स कैन स्टिल डू इट, ऐसा नहीं है इन्हें करते नहीं है, बट इफ यू सी my liability is for 3 years, that means person who is going to take money is going to come back after 3 years, but I've given a loan, that is the asset is given for 10 or 15 years. तो मेरे को बार बार लोग ढूंढने पड़ेंगे नए to replenish the money. If I'm a big enough bank then it's not a problem, but small banks should never be doing this. This is normal. In infrastructure financing also, the banks should not be doing it because asset liability mismatch. Industry के छोटे industries के need they can still fulfill. Larger industrial needs which have 10 to 15 years requirement of money, banks should not be doing it. ऐसा नहीं है they don't do it. They do it a lot. In fact, all of the NPA problems started like this only. They started doing this a lot. We'll discuss this in infrastructure and banking. एक special type के institutions भी होते हैं जो help करते हैं. These are called as developmental financial institutions. They are the ones who are capable of doing this. For example, NABARD, example SIDBI, Exim Bank. Recently for infrastructure, the government has created the National Bank for Financing Infrastructure Development. NABFID, वो इनका काम है majorly और capital markets का. They are the ones. Developed countries, Europe, US, everyone has developmental financial institutions. They are the one which get the finance for longer term projects. उसके लिए कैपिटल मार्केट डेवलपमेंट बहुत अच्छी चाहिए. जनधन योजना क्या करेगा? जनधन योजना इज जीरो बैलेंस अकाउंट. वहां पर कितने लोग कितना पैसा डिपॉजिट कर रहे हैं और कितने टाइम के लिए कर रहे हैं. मेजर प्रॉब्लम इज जो लाइबिलिटी आ रही है, वट एवर डिपॉजिट्स, इधर यू हैव अ सेविंग और यू हैव अ, जिसका अमाउंट कम है, ज्यादा फिक्स डिपॉजिट हो फिर तो हम कर ही सकते हैं, because fixed deposit locks in your amount for a specific period of time. You can't take that money out. If you take the money out, there's a penalty. जो saving deposits and the recurring deposits, or not recurring, saving which you can take out any time, that means the money will be taken out. Is this clear how industrialization and related concepts? Now we were discussing the problems of 91 reforms. The first problem of 91 reforms is clear. India has jobless growth. Has anyone found the reasons for why India's service growth was there? 91 reforms, we were talking the domestic reforms or domestic economy and the issues. The first problem we discussed was jobless growth. Why after 91 jobless growth? Because agriculture was neglected. Industry had certain problems which we discussed. And services gave us the growth. Jobless, why? Because these two are neglected, जो job create करेंगे, and services creates the growth but doesn't create jobs. Why did service sector grow in India post 91? Ability of skilled labor, okay. Less requirement of, see, skilled labor तो दोनों के लिए था. What are the push factors for the service sector? We've already discussed industry क्यों नहीं आई. What are the factors why services came? Skill is available for both. In India, at the time of independence, there were roughly 2,300, 2,000 engineers. And now when we've reached 91, we are churning out 1.5 lakh engineers every year. So that means there is a decent amount of skill available in the economy right now. This skill can be used here, can be used here. But mostly this skill was used here. Why? Less interference of the government. ये तो मैंने ही बता दिया दोनों पॉइंट कल. Just repeating. Okay. Then. See, there are two things. One is कि ये क्यों नहीं हुआ, and the second is this has happened. And UPSC questions are mostly centered around this only. That why exactly jobless growth? You have to explain why services. What is the reason for growth of services? Growth of industry did not happen, we have understood. But what is the reason for services? You can't just write skill. English speaking, so that is a part of skill. Less requirement of capital. Okay. Do you think there is less requirement of capital in services? Comparatively less. Okay. Don't compare it with industry. Tell me the only reasons for services. What you are saying is कि comparatively वहाँ है तो इसलिए शायद यहाँ हो जाए. तो comparatively तो capital सबसे कम यहाँ चाहिए. Short term investment as services. Don't just, have you read it? Are you just thinking it right now? At least focus. ये भूल जाओगे फिर दो अभी भूल जाओगे 2 दिन बाद. I gave you answers so that the topic is prepared comprehensively. You read about it. At least use chat GPT. किसी ने कल chat GPT से आंसर लिखा था. Yeah, this at least he's learning. There was a question I gave on globalization and he wrote a perfect answer. 15 में से examiner 16 देगा. If he is able to write it. But at least there was an effort to go to the internet and write about globalization and not. At least there was an effort to find 2 points, what exactly the points were. It's difficult to frame in an answer, so there was an effort. Simple एक question है, things are going to get more complex now. 91 reforms की story के बाद we are going to talk about macroeconomics, inflation. The way we discuss GDP and there would be certain terms, then again you will be confused कि क्या हो रहा है. अभी तक तो stories चल रही हैं. Now we'll start with money banking where we'll talk about a lot of technical details. Then you'll forget doing this. So prepare it within the context itself. It's very easy. Chat GPT से ही आंसर आ जाता और समझ आ जाता. Don't skip things. सारी चीजें क्लास में होने का means 100 classes. Give the exam in 2030. और वो भी पता नहीं 24 के बाद एग्जाम रहता है कि नहीं रहता है. What changes we don't know. Don't take it lightly. Find out reasons for why services growth. Now, what else were the problems that happened in the Indian economy post 91? Very good. किसी ने chat GPT से copy paste ही कर दिया. As it is introduction वहीं से. Growth of service sector can be attributed to factors like globalization, technological advancement, skilled workforce, government policies, and increasing consumer demand. Very good. अभी देख के बता दो. What were the problems that happened in 91 after in the economy after 91? Before that, 91 reforms meant we are moving towards the market. What are the problems of the market? We've already discussed capitalist economy. What are the problems? What is the most common problem of market? Before exploitation of labor, you have inequality has significantly worsened in the country. Before 91, we did not have too much variation in the income or wealth of the rich and the poor. Now we have significant inequalities in India where inequality by both income and inequality by wealth has significantly increased. Why inequality has increased? What is the reason for rising inequality? It comes from this only. Growth कहाँ पे हो रही है? Only a few percentage of people are getting the growth. The people are not getting jobs. If they are not having jobs, how will the people earn income? And secondly, when you are operating in the market, people who own the resource, private ownership of resource, they are the ones who are going to get maximum rich. This is why the difference between the rich and the poor, the top 1% and the rest 99% is getting very wide. This was not the case before 91. Everyone was equally poor before 91. Very less inequality was there. Now you see the level of inequality. Year on year, you are having reports from Oxfam, you are having reports from World Inequality Reports or Inequality Labs. They are mentioning how unequal the Indian society is becoming at very low levels of income. US has inequality, but at high levels of income. India has high levels of inequality at very low income. The poor are very poor here. The rich are extremely rich. So extremely rich and extremely poor is what is happening in India right now. This has happened post 91 because market will mean concentration of resource. And all the more the model of growth that became in India was jobless growth. Growth happened of only 1% who are there in the services sector. Most of the sectors are still jobless. This is why 2019, see the NCRB data. Why are we reading about farmer suicides? This should not be a case. Forget farmer suicides. 2019, there was an instance where MSME, businessmen suicides are also increasing. That means small businesses and agriculture are in severe distress where some people, and in the same year, you are seeing that maximum amount of luxury cars are being sold in India. Audi, BMW, sabka record sales happened last year. And on the same hand, Bajaj is not able to sell the two-wheelers. Uska record failure hai in the last 10 years, the least amount of bikes is sold and luxury cars maximum. This shows that you have huge amount of inequality. Is it clear why inequality has happened? It's clearly related here. Regional inequality, yes, you can talk about. Why regional inequality? Private sector will not invest in the backward areas, but 56 to 91 regional inequality क्यों change नहीं हुई? PSUs opened up in the backward areas, still regional inequality did not change. PSUs we discussed, in India you have these regions which are developed, this and Maharashtra and also Karnataka. This region is completely neglected. ये यूपी तक पूरा ही है neglected. This is agriculture dominated. These regions are the ones which are developed. Why? British policies, trading centers. Karnataka क्यों develop हुआ? Especially Bangalore. Bangalore has a lot of PSUs also. Defense PSUs and also all the most important PSUs are in Bangalore. Why? High literacy rate बन गया ना वो बाद में, ऐसा पहले कुछ नहीं था. Bangalore क्यों choose हुआ? See, there are two regions which are policy induced development. One region is this region, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. This is policy induced where the government created conditions for pharmaceutical industry. So this is policy induced where the government created specific conditions which were not present here. So policy induced की यहाँ पे that you are going to have pharmaceutical के लिए they created benefits. So a lot of pharmaceutical industry started developing in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. What is special about Karnataka? It's a very interesting reason why Karnataka developed. ये सब secondary हुआ. In independent India, most of the regions apart from Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu and this one, West Bengal. These are the slightly developed regions as compared to this because these are your older trading centers. So they have certain amount of trade and commerce, they have certain level of development. Why especially Karnataka? Interior region है यहाँ पर कोई specific वो भी नहीं. Coastal benefits, yes, Karnataka has a coast, but not very specific benefits because Bombay became the major trading port. Why Karnataka? Why did it become the Silicon Valley? I told you 1985 one company started its operations in Karnataka, Texas Instruments, one of the largest technology players in US, came to Bangalore. Why? Because a lot of PSUs were earlier developed in Bangalore. Bangalore was a favored point by the first Prime Minister. Not first Prime Minister. Yes, नाम Prime Minister का. Easy questions तो सारे answer कर देंगे. See what happened, why most of the defense PSUs, ISRO, everything was established in Karnataka, Bangalore, because the point was we had two hostile neighbors. So if anything north and a sudden war erupts, we would not be able to tackle, and most of our critical infrastructure, the development companies, the development PSUs, technology PSUs, if they would be established here, our critical infrastructure would be lost. So a calculation was done that it would take roughly 90 minutes if any of those missiles would come here till Karnataka. Till 90 minutes would give us enough time to prepare a response. This is why most of the defense PSUs, critical PSUs were placed in this state. That time the missile development was not very efficient. Ballistic missiles, Mach 2, Mach 3 came later. Up to seconds mein pahunch jayega Karnataka. That time it was not developed, so the idea was make it hinterland so that we can protect our critical infrastructure. It was calculated roughly 90 minutes lagenge dono jagah se if something comes where we are not prepared. So most of the defense PSUs, most of the critical infrastructure was started in Karnataka. This gave it a base that when Texas Instruments started its operations, it shows Karnataka. The other development that happened is this, Gurgaon, Delhi NCR. Why specifically Gurgaon? These are the two regions which have the IT hub. One was Karnataka. Is it clear how Karnataka developed? Most of the PSUs you see are still there in Karnataka. ISRO bhi pehle yahin khula hai. Why Delhi NCR Gurgaon? And this is a very surprising thing what happened here. Only one person is responsible for developing whole of Gurgaon. DLF, KP Singh. The Prime Minister's convoy going to Delhi, there was certain problem and there was a meeting between Rajiv Gandhi and KP Singh. He said that I can develop this land. There is a lot because Gurgaon has one special thing that Gurgaon does not have any agricultural land. The soil is bad, rainfall is also not good. Ye pura belt of Haryana, the southern Haryana, Rewari, Mahendragarh, all of this doesn't have very good soil conditions. It has barren land, Gurgaon especially. So what they said is we have vast amount of lands. We can create what he said, vertical housing. That time building regulations did not allow this. Vertical housing can be created along with bringing in a lot of players. So KP Singh presented this idea, got the conditions approved by Rajiv Gandhi, and this is 1985 onwards. And what happened is that he negotiated a deal with a very big player, that was General Electronics. इनका एक आर्म है Genpact. Genpact was the first to come to Gurgaon. And the moment Genpact came here, proximity to the airport, very less building regulations, you had massive development of Gurgaon. So Gurgaon became one IT hub, the other IT hub became Karnataka. This happened mostly after 91, when market opened for outside investments, because most of the people who have done development in Gurgaon are MNCs, they're not domestic companies. Similarly, the development done in Karnataka also is done by MNCs, they're not done by Indian companies. So they wanted to use the Indian labor, they wanted to create the conditions for growth here. Not in China, because China did not have the English speaking population, Mandarin hai wahan pe. So population wahan bhi hai, but they are not doing that. They were mostly invested in manufacturing. So this is why these regions developed. Now question is, why did these regions not develop? Yes, what was freight equalization? 1956 to 1991, we had a freight equalization policy that was in operation. And in fact, later also, what is freight equalization? Not paisa diya jata tha. The idea was, this is your raw material, most of the minerals are in this belt. So what the government thought was, if we do not allow raw material transfer to rest of the country, the only region that will be developed will be here. So what they said was that we are going to have a freight equalization policy. That means if you move the raw material from point A to point B here, or point A to point C here, the freight charges will be equal. There was a very big question that raw material सारा इसी belt में, eastern belt is rich in raw material, minerals. If we allow mineral only to go from here to here, raw material, heavy minerals, you will only have industries nearby the raw material site. You will not have industries nearby the market. For example, coal plants सिर्फ यहीं लगेंगे. Even iron and steel, mostly Odisha has iron. So all of the plants, because they're heavy raw material, you would not take to develop here. But Goa also has coal plants. UP also has coal plants. Iron and steel production is happening both ways. Now, why? Because production cost from here to here, that is transportation cost from here to here, will be equal to from here to here. This is called as freight equalization. Freight का movement यहाँ से यहाँ जितना cost है, यहाँ से यहाँ दोनों का same होगा. So this policy meant that people were not developing industries here. They started developing industries only in the established centers which already had good infrastructure. And after 91, when market came, market also went to areas where there was proper law and order and infrastructure. Remember the functions of state. So the already created functions, the market started investing. This region did not get anything. This region got neglected at the time of Green Revolution. Agriculture flopped. This region got neglected at the time when freight equalization, the raw material industry could have come here. And when 91, when the government took out its role, then also it failed. This is why when the government started developing PSUs in these areas, they also started having losses because PSUs never got the ecosystem. Standalone PSUs tha, na raw material mil raha hai, na market mil rahi hai. So the cluster of the market or the cluster of the production never formed here in these areas. This is why this region is quite backward as compared to these. Now the state has to first improve the infrastructure, has to give the proper law and order, then only someone can think about investing here. Without that, the market will never invest. अब इनके लिए एक बहुत बड़ा catch-22 situation है. Consider why Gujarat or Maharashtra or Karnataka developed. What they said was, the initial investment that came in those areas, this meant that the growth of those areas was improved. And if the growth of those areas was improved, the revenue for the government increases. If the government revenue increases, the infrastructure. And if the infrastructure improves, then investment again. So for them, this is a vicious cycle, a virtuous cycle that has formed. Now in the backward areas, to build revenue, to build infrastructure, you need revenue. Our revenue kahan se aaye? This is why you'll always find most of these states are dependent on centers' money for most of their works. You don't have any industry because they can't provide this because they don't have revenue. And revenue is also required for improving the human capital. This is why you'll see a lot of migration happening from these areas to the areas there. Because the policy of the government of freight equalization, earlier developments, and due to this, those areas are the ones which are developed. So there are very few areas in the country which are developed. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, very less of West Bengal, and Delhi NCR. Delhi NCR being only Gurgaon because of certain conditions that got created. DLF is the sole reason why Gurgaon has been developed. Only one reason. Is it clear how regional inequality has happened? Equalization फिर सारी इंडस्ट्री यहीं लग जाएंगी ना. अगर रॉ मटेरियल यहीं तो कोल एवरीथिंग बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ योर दिस इज डेकन प्लाटो का मोस्ट द रीजन वेयर विच हैज मोस्ट मिनरल्स सो एवरीथिंग विल बी फॉर्म्ड हेयर ओनली. बैकफायर्ड के वहाँ लग गई ऑलरेडी बेटर इंडस्ट्री. गोवा हैज आयरन स्टील प्लांट्स, यूपी हैज आयरन, भूषण स्टील के सारे प्लांट यूपी में. सो अ लॉट ऑफ सर्विसेज बिकॉज फ्रेट इक्वलाइजेशन. अगर कॉस्ट सेम है तो वाई शुड आई केयर? रेलवेज इज द वन विच इज गोइंग टू डू दिस. It was not just poor state policies, it was also about the politics of this region. If you would have got certain leaders, they would have got the benefits. Charan Singh and all, they got the benefits. Tau Devilal, they got the benefits for the farmers of this area. Once the Green Revolution's impact was getting reduced, they are the ones which got most of the loans from the banks. They are the ones which pushed the capitalist bullocks to start doing other activities also. This region has got a lot of visionary leaders which brought the development. This is why Western UP is completely different from rest of the UP. Because of the presence of certain visionary leaders who got them the benefits. They had their constituency, they gave the benefits to their constituency. Here you did not have any significant movement. Naxalbari movement jo bhi yahan hui hai, it could not achieve anything because it was a violent movement. So there was not a lot of development that was happening. This is why then if no development is happening, you don't have significant leadership. What problem will become is then you'll have caste-based politics, you'll have violence, you'll have religion, everything will happen here. Because now you don't have resources. Consider most of the states in northeast part, they have a lot of sectarian violence. It's not something unique that is happening in Manipur. ये हमेशा से होता रहा है. Sometimes in Nagaland, in Assam, every part has seen this violence because there are no resources. People are dependent on only two things. One is agriculture and revenue from the center. There is no other economic activity. In fact, most of the times they face a problem because हमारा time zone is also 82 point something here. तो वो 3 बजे ही वहाँ अंधेरा हो जाता है. So they're also facing a problem because of the sun moving like this. Geography, I hope you know. Land of the rising sun. तो यहाँ अंधेरा भी जल्दी हो जाएगा. जब दिल्ली उठ रही है यहाँ सो रहे हैं लोग. So this is why also mismatches happen. This is why development is not happening here. And now when development will not be there, you will not have any growth. You will have violence based on ascriptive factors. कि हमें मिलना चाहिए जो मिलना है. This is where you son of the soil policies also start. कि nothing is happening, we should get the first. You start fighting. The more fighting happens, social capital further erodes, market will not come. State cannot develop. Is it clear how this region is backward, how regional inequality happened? Middle class kahan generate hui hai? Middle class, they are finding work somewhere else. Do you think this area has middle class? तो middle यही है ना, growth थोड़े लोगों को मिली है. This is why I said read the reasons for services. Services नहीं middle class बनाई है. अब why services growth? IT sector आया, telecom sector improved the services. Then this sector would require further services. Tourism, hotels, education, healthcare. They want better healthcare. ऐसी BL के किसके लिए है? BL के और Medanta, it is for whom? Upper mid, this is only because they are creating the second level order demand for new services. Because IT and your IT enabled services, computer services, telecom services, इनसे जिन लोगों ने पैसा कमाया, they are going to use that money. Where are they going to use that money? For them, you have 500 rupees 1 liter water. So the second level of services mostly in tourism, education, healthcare, hotels. 300 रुपए की रोटी. They can afford. They have incomes. Luxury cars, they can afford everything. So second order services is created for them. अब इनके ये services है जिन्होंने पैसा कमाया, this is your middle class. Middle class is not just, this is upper, but a middle class also. Both of these are causing the rise of middle class because now you have job opportunities. Why do you think people are running after IT jobs even when they are a civil engineer? Because they know incomes are here. They are the ones who are improving everything. Agriculture mein in the whole region, Punjab and Haryana, if people have grown in agriculture, now they are looking for government colleges. Government colleges, they are looking for jobs. This is how middle class gets created. Middle class create करने के लिए opportunity होनी चाहिए job की. Opportunity job सारी यहाँ है. Very less opportunities here. And even here, it will create if it is hand manufacturing. Automobile, Maruti का plant लगा गुड़गांव में. Most of the automobile jobs are being provided by Maruti. So this is also giving you middle class. Development of this is why I said prepare services, समझ आएगा middle class क्या है. Is this clear? Regional inequality? How it is happening, regional inequality, what policies were formed, what is the reason why we have it? Then what else are the problems that happened? What else are the problems that happened? Now, whatever this migration is happening, is this migration by choice? Most of the migration is distress migration. What has happened after 91 is, since the state has taken a back step and you have more and more of private players, the vulnerability has increased significantly. Poverty has reduced, but vulnerability has increased significantly because most of the job creation that has happened in the Indian economy has been informal job creation. Why do you think you're finding a cook or a maid as low as 1,000 rupees per month? Talk about the developed countries. If people have gone out, they are the ones who are learning how to cook. Why? Because the cook is available for $25,000. Because cooking is a specialized skill. Here you are paying 1,000, 1,200, 1,500. That's the maximum per month. Now 1,500 if you calculate per month, 2 times a day. That means 60 times. What is the value of one meal? 90 rupees. 90 rupees one time you are paying for cooking the food. 90 rupees में can you afford food from outside? 90 rupees only. And no holidays. दीदी छुट्टी क्यों कर ली? मार दो दीदी को. How exactly? Because this is all, and just talk about सारे यहीं से आएंगे लोग. Nobody earning good amount of money here is going to work for you at 1,500. They are going to demand more. Why? Because this area did not create development. All of this is distress migration. RBI last year reported that the average daily wage of a worker is somewhere around 200 to 250 per day. And if you are not earning this, this means no food, no social security. Urban poverty is a thing which has not been given due attention in the country. And why this has happened? Because of distress migration. People are not going out of choice, but are forced to do it because they have to earn a living. And most of the jobs that are created are informal. So vulnerability of the population has significantly increased post 91 because the private sector for more profits is not giving permanent jobs. It's mostly informal. We discussed how globalization has caused informal labor. Informal labor means exploitation. Distress migration, very low wages. That means you don't have any social security net. Now, why don't they have any social security net? Is this clear how they are related? Poverty कम हुई है, but vulnerability भी बढ़ी है. Poverty is only defined through consumption expenditure. That means people are moving from here to only here. Now this person will be classified as not poor, but can further fall back into poverty because the vulnerability is high. This is why you saw a lot of people going back to the rural areas when the lockdown was announced. Because they knew that city is not going to protect them, they are not going to have their daily wages. Now why this daily wage is not happening? Or why we have so much of vulnerability? What is the state doing here? State, we discussed, after 91 has got a lot of money, revenue has increased. Then why there's no social security? What is the problem with the state? किसको नहीं है voting rights? Those who have voting rights, what are they getting? Wages fixed nahi hai. See, one of the biggest problem that has happened, why the vulnerability has increased, because state has not invested in its capacity. Now the role of the state was to provide the basic goods, was to provide education and healthcare. Now what has happened after 91 is the state capacity has been severely diluted. State capacity in delivering, say, education, delivering healthcare, now this state capacity has been severely compromised. The state has not added to its capacity of delivering these goods to the people, despite having the money. Now why the state has not invested in any of this? State has more revenue and state has a clear-cut function of doing this. Why the state has not invested in this? What? So they can create, right? अब यही ड्यूटी है, PSU तो ड्यूटी नहीं है, तो ये क्यों नहीं किया है? Consider in all of these sectors, do you think state is present here or is providing good quality education or good quality sanitation? No, why not subsidy? Why they're not creating capacity? पैसे बढ़ चुके हैं, subsidy से क्यों दे रहे हैं? ये better क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? Because the state has found a solution in market. The state wants everyone to go and buy all of this in the market. Now the problem of the market is the market has not created enough jobs or enough income that the people can buy this good. Those who can buy this good in the market are getting good quality access to this. Those who don't have the income, they don't have the state, they don't have the market. Consider the example of arsenic contamination. Arsenic contamination कैसे कोई solve करे जब उनके पास ये ही नहीं है? And the state has taken a back seat. This is what we are calling as privatization by stealth. Everything the state is pushing to the market. They don't want to do this. This is what welfare state has been converted into a corporate state. Because everything they want you to buy from the market. Now people don't have a problem with this, those who have income. Those who have income, they're ready to buy everything from the market. The problem is you've not created enough jobs that they can buy from the market. So the market is providing, but the people don't have income and the state is not investing. The state has taken a very easy route. They have neglected all of this because they want everything to be done by the market. It is not that it's not possible by the state to do this. It is possible, but they are not doing it because they think market would be more efficient. Now consider any basic service. In healthcare, what is the government policy? In healthcare, what is the government policy? Indian Express reported a news item on that policy yesterday. Ayushman Bharat. Now what is Ayushman Bharat? Insurance. Insurance means you are going to buy the service in the... You are not building more hospitals, but you have given an insurance policy that you go and claim in the private hospital. Niti Aayog in 2020 gave a recommendation that 20% of the beds in district hospital should be given to the private players. Any of these sectors you see, the state is closing down a lot of schools because they are not seeing enrollment. They are not improving schools. They are closing down schools and pushing everyone to the market. So the state, by neglect, by stealth, is killing all of these sectors because they want it to be delivered through market, because what is market is considered more efficient. Now the problem is market is definitely more efficient, but market services will only be availed by those people who have the income. Now the first problem was that you have not created enough jobs. If you don't have enough jobs, you don't have any income, then from where are the people going to get this? And if people don't have this and they're dependent on daily wage, they're always going to remain vulnerable. The vulnerability will not remove because this is what solves the vulnerability. If this is not available and my daily wage has to go for these items, I cannot grow. I cannot upskill myself. I cannot just stop one day of work. In India, maximum amount of population can't skip one day work because they are going to lose money for daily wage, money for daily subsistence. People tend to prolong their medical care because they are going to lose money. And they're just one disease away from poverty, one disease, because the state is completely absent now after 91. It has hollowed down the state. The state governments which are giving this good, they have still better indicators of human development. Rest of the states dependent on market, there is significant amount of vulnerability. The state capacity has not improved. This is why often it is said for India that India has, because of these reasons, India has certain islands of Now, what are these islands of prosperity? Islands of prosperity is your NCR, Delhi, NCR, Gurgaon. Now, why they're islands of prosperity? Consider Gurgaon, all of the services are private. They don't use public transport, they use personal cabs. They have personal security guards, they don't use the police. They have their own personal water, they have their own personal electricity. Everything there is private because people can afford to pay. There is no involvement of the state. Just look at the development of Gurgaon itself, NH8 this side, the golf course road, and NH8 that side, the older Gurgaon. Older Gurgaon, you will find buses. You will find the state dependence for electricity. Newer Gurgaon, you don't need anything. Everything you pay, you get the service. Housing societies, you see, everything you pay, you get the service. These are the islands of prosperity where people can pay any amount. BLK ka entry charge is 1800 rupees and your daily wage is 200 rupees. That means you have to work for 6 days just to enter BLK. Forget what prescription is going to come, what doctor is going to give. 6 days of wages you have to collect. You don't have to use anything just to go there. Some people are getting it, most of the people are still here because the state has taken a back seat. And this is why for state capacity, another term is being used that India has a flailing state. It's not a failed state, it's a flailing state. What is meaning of flailing state? It says that if there are any big projects or big missions that have to be executed, India is successfully able to do so. But the day-to-day services that have to be provided to the people, be it garbage collection, be it water provision, be it electricity, this we are not able to do, this we are successful. Commonwealth Games करा लेंगे, IPL हर साल हो जाएगा, but रोज पानी नहीं पहुंचा पाएंगे. So we have capacity to execute big missions. Kumbh Mela is one administrative where you need a lot of administration because there are crores of people coming at one point. So that is run smoothly. But day-to-day garbage collection is something which you can't do. Any of these services where you have to provide quality on a daily basis, this is where the state is failing, but this is something you're able to execute. Now, why is it important? Because up till now, what was happening, these oceans of prosperity could buy everything from the market. But the problems today are so huge, your market will also not able to solve. Consider the problem of air pollution, climate change, the disasters that are happening, or even one of the problems which we saw was, did the market help in any of these cases? Can the market help in any of the cases? Market cannot provide you clean air. This is not very effective. It's not, and you can't carry it everywhere. The disasters caused by climate change, the flooding, the droughts, your market cannot solve this. And same pandemic. Even if you had loads of money, you did not have hospital beds. You did not get oxygen. Now the problems are so huge, if the state does not improve its capacity, everyone is going to die. The airplane had economy seats and had business class. Business class got everything. Now the whole plane is going down. If you don't improve the state capacity, because earlier people were left to die, nobody cared, because they could not afford these goods in the market. But the problem is now everybody is going to die. This is why the state has to provide for this. The state has to provide for this. After 91, this has been a very big issue which has been neglected. Everything is now available in the market, so state is not providing it. State further weakens this so that they have a push towards the market. This is why we are saying, by stealth or by neglect, you neglect these sectors and then say they are inefficient and push them towards the market, considering market as efficient. This is the biggest problem of 91 reforms, that you have huge amount of inequality which has led to vulnerability and weakening of state capacity. This vulnerability is because of weakening of state capacity. And if people have not been given jobs, they don't have incomes, the vulnerability is going to stay because they can't buy anything from the market. Consider people are not able to buy food grains from the market. 80 crore people, the government has to give food grains. This is the government claimed as an achievement. That means people don't have enough income to buy those food grains. People don't have enough income to buy the education or buy the healthcare. This is the level of vulnerability we have created because of lack of state capacity. The problem is not revenue. Revenue is significantly increasing because the growth is still coming. 8%, 7% growth for 25 years. That means both center and state governments have enough resources. How they use the resources is important. This is why the whole debate on freebies, because agar yahan pe you give subsidies, you're not creating anything. That means you're creating a dependency. Consider the mess they have created in the power sector. We have capacity, but we are not able to deliver because of the whole governance issue. So this is why now vulnerability is all the more increasing, because services improve nahi ho rahi hain. Private mein people won't be able to buy. This is why you are seeing ruralization of the Indian economy also. People are going back from the urban areas to the rural areas because you have enough safety nets, for example, Manrega and agriculture. This is why population in agriculture in India is increasing, because of the vulnerability seen in the urban areas. Is it clear how 91 reforms have caused a problem? Any doubts here? Now what can be done? What can be done here? After 91, what can be done? I told you how 91 reforms was the first generation reforms which only improved the entry barriers. That means we also have to talk about other factors on which ease of doing business depends. This is the one reason, if you remove the entry barriers, you also have to remove other conditions or improve other conditions. For example, getting land, getting environmental clearances, or even the rule has to be clear. It's not that clearances should be given without any thought, that because if environmental clearances are given without a thought, you will have a problem of sustainable development. Disasters badenge hi. So you have to have clear rules. Doesn't mean that rules only work for few people. Clear rules you have the clear policies, which will mean that you can get a permit or no permit. Then working on labor reforms, labor laws, contract enforcement, even your exit. All of these factors, the government has to improve its regulation. Now, why the government is improving regulation? The government will improve the regulation, you will have more and more. And if you have more investment, you will have more. Because the first problem is that you don't have enough jobs. And now after 91, the creation of job is responsibility of the market, of the private players, not of the government. So you have to create conditions for them that they can grow. Along with this, the government needs to improve the, ये government का function है, infrastructure plus provision of public goods, health, education and all non-marketable goods, including social security net. The state needs to do this and improve this. This is the facilitation and this is the regulation. These are the two fronts on which we need to act. Provide social security to tackle vulnerability, provide infrastructure and public goods without having them to pay, and make it easier for the industry to invest, which is going to create jobs. Yes, everything is a governance issue. At the end of the day, political class makes the decisions. They are the ones which decide everything. And if they're not able to deliver, it is a governance issue. Decision making is, politics and governance is where it's important. Is it clear? You can write down this part. The 1991 reforms, the 91 reforms are referred to as the first generation reforms. As they only relaxed the entry barriers for business, as they only relaxed the entry barriers for business, but were not followed up by further reforms in regulation, not followed up by further reforms in regulation. The state's role in regulation and facilitation, the state's role in regulation and facilitation was not improved. Therefore, the private sector investments in industry were mostly focused on capital intensive sectors, and therefore very less amount of jobs were created in the Indian economy. The state needs to improve the regulatory environment, by providing clear and stable policies, for land acquisition, environmental clearances or environmental policy, taxation, trade policy, contract enforcement, and exit laws. And exit laws. So you can right now also see what problems are created because the policy is not stable. Today itself, the newspapers have reported how drone policy, where India has a significant amount of import duty, is causing problem for manufacturers here. Same thing is going to happen in laptops also. So that means you will not have a lot of private investment. If investment doesn't come, you will not have job creation. So this can be a problem because the state has not improved the regulatory environment. The ease of doing business in India is not very easy. Is it clear? And how vulnerability can be tackled through infrastructure and public goods and social security. Because vulnerability, the state is responsible to tackle it, not the market. Market will always treat the labor as a commodity. It's the state that has to legitimize the market by providing infrastructure and also social security, redistribution. Is it clear? How the role of the state after 91 in a capitalist economy has not been performed well. Is it clear the analysis of 91 reforms? The impact of liberalization on the Indian economy. Now, how did we? Exit law is getting out of the market. In India, it was very difficult. We'll discuss exit law when we discuss banking. IBC will discuss in detail. Now, to improve this industry, because this was very evident, 91 to 97 is the time period when industry saw significant growth. There were huge amounts of investments happening in Indian industry. But most of these investments were happening in capital goods. Job creation was still minimal. After 97, industry saw a slowdown because investments coming from outside world slowed down. 97, we had the Asian financial crisis. And in Asian financial crisis, we had two problems. That the moment financial crisis happened, India was exporting a lot of goods to them. So India's export fell down. And secondly, a lot of foreign direct investment or foreign investments from India also reduced. Both these problems meant that industry's investment after 97 slowed down. That means industry growth has been slowed down. Maximum was received in these 6 years, after which it was considerably slow. All this while, jobs is still not given. So now what exactly is the strategy which we need to follow so as to improve on these jobs? One model which we saw in China, which got a lot of development both in industry and also created jobs, this was the cluster model. The aggregation or the cluster based model for industrialization. Now what exactly is happening here? All of the industries which are closely related to each other, the raw material, intermediate and finished goods, all of them are brought at one place. Cluster based model means we are aggregating everyone. Any industrial production has horizontal integration and also has vertical. That means these are the players who are at the same value chain. These are the players who are above the value chain. So for any particular industry, those on the horizontal chain and those on the vertical chain, both have to be brought together at one place. This is a cluster. For example, your IT cluster Bangalore, IT cluster Gurgaon. Cluster means similar type of industries should operate at one place. This gives huge benefits to them. What are the benefits if you operate in a cluster? For example, Rajendra Nagar cluster for UPSC. Because horizontal, photocopy books सब है, coaching institute भी है, नीचे खाने बनाने वाले भी हैं, maids भी हैं. Everything is you are getting at one place. This is the cluster based model. Now what is the benefit of this cluster based model? And this has happened throughout the world. Competition. Time. The biggest benefit is that you're going to save on logistics cost. Transportation and storage will be less because everyone is at the same place. Logistics cost is very less here. Plus, the government, we discussed how government has a problem that infrastructure has not been created, जिसकी वजह से industry में problem है. Now, infrastructure development in all of the parts of the country would take a lot of time, lot of investment. Why not pick out some areas and give them the best world-class infrastructure? At one place, give them the best infrastructure. You will not have to create infrastructure in different parts of the country. This means the cost for doing business significantly reduced, logistics cost because the companies are operating nearby, and also infrastructure cost have reduced. What else? Regionally wanted, हर जगह cluster बनाओ ना. Distributed infrastructure नहीं बनाना पड़ेगा, concentrated at one place. Quality how? Competition, before competition, you also will have a lot of synergies. Synergy means people are going to learn from each other when they're operating at one place. One tire manufacturer can learn from another tire manufacturer, which in turn can learn from another part which is being manufactured by the car. All of these three are operating close by. That means they have more synergy benefits. They're going to learn from each other what exactly is happening. This is going to give a lot of productivity benefits. More and more development of technology because everything is operating nearby. You have more interaction amongst each other. This is why do you think booksellers have become publishers here? Next step, what they are going to do is open an institute. This is how you learn because you understand ke kaam hota kaise hai. So this is how you can move up the skill chain. This player knows how they produce, they can tell them the specifications they want. This means you're going to get a lot of productivity enhancement at the same place. Not just this, the skilled labor which is moving around. You don't have to find skilled labor because everyone's available in the same area. There's easy availability of skilled labor. Skilled labor also gets opportunity to work across the horizontal and vertical chain. Unke liye promotional avenues open up because they are operating at the same area. Networking से ही सबसे ज़्यादा jobs बनती हैं. Networking will happen easily here because everybody is operating in the same cluster. So cluster does not just give you logistics benefits, better infrastructure at one place, more productivity because of the synergy happening here. Not just this, it is also giving you more opportunities to create business. Because if this tire manufacturer wants to move up the value chain or move below the value chain, it can open new business. You can expand your business, open new opportunities because everything is available at one place. This is how cluster-based model is the reason why every part of the country, every part of the world has seen development. Japan has a lot of clusters, China has clusters, Detroit, the oldest cluster automobile manufacturing in US. That if you develop it at one place, you are going to get a lot of benefits. Now this cluster-based model, what we were trying to learn was, in India we have various clusters. We started with first special economic zones. Then we had the national investment manufacturing zones. Then we started with coastal economic zones, mega food parks. So India has a lot of policies for developing clusters. Now why India has not been very successful in developing any of these clusters? Because most of these clusters India tried to create were artificial clusters. ये benefit तब होता है जब किसी natural reason की वजह से they start forming clusters. For example, SEZ was a policy which was followed in China. Now why SEZ development model was very natural in China? Because most of the SEZs were opened nearby the ports. Now why ports are significant and what is significant about SEZ? SEZ were classified as units which are foreign entities. This land, special economic zone, was classified as foreign land. What is the benefit behind this? This means whatever imports are coming in the SEZ, they will come duty free. No restrictions, no duty, nothing, because this is not treated as a domestic land. Duty tab लगता है जब foreign land से domestic land पे आता है. This is treated as a foreign land. That means you are going to get all imports free. Free in the sense no duty. And whatever production you do is only meant for exports. SEZs are deemed to be foreign territories for all purposes of foreign trade. That means imports are going to come duty free. They are going to deal in dollars. They're not going to deal in domestic currency, and everything they manufacture is going to be exported. No interaction with the domestic area. And this was a natural creation in China, and the most famous SEZ was the Shenzhen SEZ, Shanghai also, but Shenzhen was the most famous one. Now the benefit here is you are going to have export-led growth, you are going to create jobs, and cluster means all of these benefits are going to be there. This was natural formation because if you want to do imports and you want to do exports, you will have to create it nearby the port. Foreign land ka tabhi benefit hai. If you open an SEZ in the interior part of the country, you are not going to get any benefit because interior se port aane mein hi unka transportation cost bahut hai. And they have a negative impact that they cannot deal with the domestic area. So this is why SEZ, deemed to be a foreign territory, was a success in China, which India tried to follow in 2005. We passed an SEZ Act and started giving clearances for a lot of SEZ so that we can have this cluster-based aggregation model and also create the jobs using export-led growth. This was the special economic zones. Now, special economic zones took a lot of time to develop. The major problem was land acquisition. Goa or Maharashtra mein, this would have been very beneficial because of the nearby ports. but a lot of movements happened because of the excessive land that was being taken, because cluster banane ke liye you'll need a lot of land. So land acquisition became a problem, plus other issues also happened. So SEZ failed to take off in India, especially the manufacturing SEZ. Service SEZ are still working good. This is why the government wanted to complement them with another cluster. This cluster was known as the National Investment Manufacturing Zones. This was part of your National Manufacturing Policy 2011. Now what this National Manufacturing Policy 2011 introduced, that we are going to develop certain clusters which are going to have 5,000 square hectares of space, and they are going to be integrated townships. Integrated township means everyone is going to operate at the same place, and we are also going to create houses for them. How they will be different from SEZ? These NIMZ can trade both in the domestic area and also in the foreign area that they can export. And all of these NIMZ would be greenfield development. Greenfield means something which is built from the scratch. Brownfield means it's already created, you are renovating or modifying it. Greenfield is preparing anything from scratch. So in 5,000 square hectares, we are going to have an integrated township where people are going to invest. We are going to have manufacturing plus places to stay, getting all the benefits of shared infrastructure, better synergy, more job creation, and also expansion of business. This was introduced as part of the National Manufacturing Policy 2011. SEZ 2005, both are clusters. SEZ specifically meant for foreign trade, foreign duty areas. This is both for domestic and trade. This was NIMZ and SEZ. Is this clear? Similarly, various policies have created the coastal economic zones and mega food parks. Right now, for improving food processing, the government is establishing mega food parks, which is yet another cluster for food processing industry. This is how the government has tried to improve the manufacturing in India, but both SEZ and NIMZ have been a failure. Because NIMZ, if you see, why would these things fail in India? Why would they not work? You've seen the benefits. China and everywhere it has worked. In India, these two models have failed. What could be the reason? Governance. Kya governance? Huh? See, one problem that happened in SEZ was, when you are having a focused approach, first you need to locate them nearby the ports, and second you need to open only 5-10 SEZs. India gave approval to more than 300 SEZs, and none of them were closer by the ports. Most of them were in the domestic area. If you are interior area mein you are having an SEZ, first export करने के लिए इतना travel distance. Second problem is it cannot deal with the domestic area. अगर domestic area के साथ ये trade करते हैं, they will have to pay tax. So there's no benefit of dealing with domestic area, and the export is far away. Getting imports, exports is far away. Further, how will the government bring all of the units in SEZ? All of the industries which have already been set up, they need certain incentives to come into SEZ. Already manufacturing units have their own supply chain. They are working at some place. To bring them to a new place, you will have to incentivize things. How will you incentivize? This is where the government started giving them a lot of tax incentives. That is, if you open the unit in SEZ, you will not have to pay any tax for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. The government gave it for 5 years, and after 5 years, the government started applying certain taxes on them in the form of minimum alternate tax and dividend distribution tax. This became an inhibitor for the firms to open in SEZ. First, too much of SEZs in the interior area, then no incentives to open up centers. Now this is why, and also a lot of administrative problems happened, because SEZ ke rule making kari state governments ne. And state governments created a lot of administrative barriers for them to work. कि इतना land use कर सकते हो, इतना आपको यहाँ से ये लेना पड़ेगा. They created a lot of administrative hassles for the units operating in SEZ. This is why SEZ model in manufacturing is not a very big success in India. For services, definitely it has worked well. Now coming to NIMZ. What is the problem with NIMZ? That one, you have created SEZ. Now you are saying we are also creating another type of cluster. The first biggest problem is, where are you going to get how are you going to acquire the land? First you're creating this cluster, then you're saying 5,000 square hectares ka ek naya cluster. Land acquisition became a major issue. The second problem, who is going to provide that shared infrastructure in this space? The national manufacturing policy said this shared infrastructure is going to be provided by the state. State already doesn't have revenue. And you are saying state should invest in a lot of infrastructure, state should get the land, and the benefits the state is going to get after 5 or 10 years, because ये unit जब तैयार होगा, जब लोग आएंगे, तभी revenue आएगा, तभी jobs आएंगी. That means a political party in power will do all of this for 5 years. They don't know what will happen after 5 years, but definitely a lot of investment has happened, and they might not get the benefit. So what happened for NIMZ was, there was announced, most of the NIMZ got stuck because land was not there. And second, nobody was ready to provide the infrastructure. The third problem that came in NIMZ, that now what are the incentives you are going to give to the units to come to NIMZ? आपने SEZ के लिए tax incentives दिए, वो भी हटा दिए. NIMZ में what the incentives are you going to give? State government is already investing money in infrastructure, is already foregoing the tax in SEZ. Now you are saying forego the tax in NIMZ also. तो पैसे सारे लेने छोड़ दो और डेवलपमेंट दे दो. This is why NIMZ has failed to take off. Only 3 NIMZ are in certain stages of implementation that are also not fully functional. Rest, whatever approvals were given, they have not created anything. This is how cluster-based model has not been successful in India. The mega food parks right now we are developing, but this is also seeing certain problems because small manufacturers, small food processing units are not ready to come into these parks. So we are facing problems in cluster-based model because most of the clusters that have been created in India are forced clusters which do not give any natural advantage to any unit to relocate. If there would have been a natural advantage, the firms would have themselves come here and created the cluster. When there's no natural advantage, the firms are not coming in. This is the reason why these clusters have failed to take off, and India still has problem in manufacturing and job creation. This has worked all over the world because of the support provided by the government if it was artificial, and if it was natural, this is a natural agglomeration which doesn't need any benefits. Automatically aayenge. For example, if certain institutes have opened up there and you have a lot of services available, this becomes an advantage for others to come and start doing it. Gurgaon got developed because Gurgaon had infertile land, it had a lot of land, got the government support, and you had the development of the IT sector there. So this is now a natural advantage building up. Artificial support from the government. These all were very artificial without consistent support from the government. This is why these models fail to develop. But the government still in various forms is trying to develop cluster because government के लिए cost advantages बहुत हैं. They will not have to provide infrastructure everywhere. They want to provide a focused infrastructure at one place. This is why the government has also started building logistic parks. Logistic park is also aggregation, cluster-based model. Is it clear what are cluster-based models? What are SEZ? What is NIMZ? You can write down this. Textile parks also is the same. PM Mitra, the textile parks, everything. Because the government thinks कि अगर हम agglomeration नहीं देंगे, see this has happened all over the world. Japan में भी cycle clusters, manufacturing clusters are the one which have given development because units जब पास में होते हैं तो everything is a benefit. They learn from each other, technology improves, everything happens. But if they're far away, then nothing improves. So this is what government through various ways are trying to develop clusters. बहुत successful नहीं है, but strategy यही है. Textile parks, logistics parks, mega food parks, coastal economic zones, coastal cities, special economic zones, NIMZ, सब clusters हैं. Benefits सबके same है. Different names the government keeps on coming up with clusters. Because world over clusters में ही development हुई है. IT में भी also you see right now why London is called as the financial hub. All the banks, financial institutions are at one place. Similarly, Mumbai is called as the financial capital of India because all of the banks are at one place. अब किसी को job भी ढूंढनी है गुड़गांव से, उसको banking job नहीं मिलेगी, वहाँ पे मुंबई में मिलेगी. And मुंबई में he can find 10 different jobs at one place. This is benefit both for the company and for the labor. The company also learns from different things. FDA also comes, wants to start there. Texas Instruments ने ही IT parks बनाने शुरू किए वहाँ पे. जैसे ही Genpact आया, BPO सारे आने लगे गुड़गांव में. One player comes in, you have other, and when cluster forms, then the cluster will grow on its own. This is why see the level of development Gurgaon or Bangalore has seen after 91. There were very poor areas not having any good level of infrastructure or everything was bad. Agriculture भी नहीं हो पाता दोनों जगह में. And now see the level of development. See the income growth which is seen in these two areas and everybody is rushing towards these clusters. तो ऐसे ही क्लस्टर डेवलपमेंट्स होता है. डेट्रॉइट वाज द फर्स्ट क्लस्टर, यूएस मोटर टाउन. All the automobile manufacturing happening at one place. So there are a lot of synergetic benefits that happen in clusters. Government के लिए भी और business के लिए भी. This is why we are trying it through various means. Consistent support नहीं मिला है, policy change हुई है, इसलिए develop नहीं हो पाए. State governments had seen problems in NIMZ के इतना land कहाँ से लाएंगे, land acquisition. SEZ में land acquisition became a very big problem. Goa में a lot of land had to be returned back because people were not happy with the land acquisition norms. Maharashtra SEZ, Mumbai SEZ, there was a very big problem not getting the land. सो पोर्ट एरियाज के पास लैंड एक्विजिशन की प्रॉब्लम हुई, इंटीरियर में एसईजेड खोल दिया. गुड़गांव में एसईजेड है, सर्विस एसईजेड. गुजरात गिफ्ट सिटी, दैट इज एन फाइनेंशियल एसईजेड. सो इफ यू डोंट ओपन इट नियर बाय प्लेस, रिसेंटली देयर वाज अ डेवलपमेंट गुजरात में, द गिफ्ट सिटी हैज अलाउड वन थिंग. इट वाज इन द न्यूज लास्ट वीक. गिफ्ट सिटी हैज अलाउड वन थिंग. गिफ्ट सिटी इज योर फाइनेंशियल एसईजेड. What has it allowed? Last week it was in news, and now these type of questions are coming in prelims. What did they allow? They are investing. That is easy. Yes, a gift city is also cluster, but allow क्या किया है? हाँ? Semiconductor manufacturing नहीं. Semiconductor manufacturing is completely different. Gift city में कैसे होगा? तो financial. हमें gift city का बनाने का point था मुंबई से थोड़ा सा finance यहाँ ले आए, उसको हब बना दे. But gift city is also not a very big success. वहाँ भी बहुत सारा area is kept like this. हाँ, what building? Diamond, no. A very significant thing has happened. That is not. See, ये areas SEZ में हमेशा duty free ही होगा, because SEZs are treated as foreign areas. For duty purposes they are treated as foreign territory. They are not treated as an Indian territory. तभी export भी easy है और import भी easy है. अगर वो domestic area के साथ वो trade करेंगे तो duty लगेगी. Foreign university, no. Indian firms have been allowed to list on foreign exchanges through Gift City. IFSC, the International Financial Center, it has allowed listing of Indian firms. Stock exchange पे list होता है. Indian firms were not allowed to list on outside exchanges. Now this has been allowed. Read this news last month. Last week it has happened. This can come as a statement in prelims. Are Indian firms allowed to list on outside exchanges? This is a change that happened last 15 days. Focus on what is happening. Gift City is an example of financial SEZ. Financial SEZ and service SEZ have been very successful in India. Manufacturing SEZs or manufacturing clusters have failed to pick up because natural advantage थी नहीं, artificial थे तो government support चाहिए. Government support ढंग से मिला नहीं. This is why these two things did not work out. Is it clear? Write down cluster based. Cluster based industrialization. Cluster based industrialization. Clusters are geographic concentrations that include companies in the same industry or technology area, that share infrastructure, suppliers and distribution networks. That share infrastructure, suppliers and distribution networks. Is it clear what are clusters? See, clusters are beneficial for retail market also. For example, Karol Bagh, Gafar Market. It's a cluster for electronic goods. Sarojini Nagar, Kamla Nagar. Cluster for what? Cheap clothing. जो luxury नहीं करनी, Sarojini Nagar. Everything is available at one place. This is beneficial both for the business and also for the consumer. Retail markets may be clusters benefits so that you could go at one place. All of the variety you can see at one place. This is how clusters are beneficial across the value chain, not just in production, but also in retail. You will always find everything at one place. You get tire market है, phone market है, एक ही जगह पे सब लोग हैं. This gives a benefit. Write down the benefits of clusters are First, the cost of transportation is reduced. The cost of transportation is reduced as input suppliers. The cost of transportation is reduced as input suppliers can exploit economies of scale. As input suppliers can exploit the economies of scale in large clusters of downstream firms. In large clusters of downstream firms. You understand downstream? Upstream, downstream, connecting to the market, near downstream firms, who in turn benefit from timely delivery, and lower inventory costs. Second, knowledge spillovers, in particular, informal exchanges of ideas, are more likely when firms are in close geographical proximity. Knowledge spillovers, in particular, informal exchanges of ideas, are more likely when firms are in close geographical proximity. Close geographical proximity. See, if people are here in this industry, UPSC preparation, if you start up a unit here, you will understand कि market में क्या problem है, क्या deliver हो रहा है, क्या नहीं हो रहा है. You can learn a lot of things that are happening and then you can cover that area. 2 years back, this Rajendra Nagar market saw a spurt of new libraries. And they were not libraries, they were only reading rooms where they gave a space where you can sit and read. They were not giving any books, but they understood from the market कि क्या gap है and what business can be created. So this is how, if you operate in a geographical proximity, there is informal exchange of ideas, what can be done, what cannot be done. In fact, in the last 5 to 6 years, this market has seen so many changes. 2014 tak, there was a scarcity of information. People did not know where the content is, and now see where the content is. How changes have happened. Test series कुछ भी available नहीं था 2014 में market में. People did not used to write any GS test. GS was all luck based. Anything people used to prepare was only optional. Optional and essay used to decide the rank. There was no answer writing. There was nothing GS. Everybody was like, जब optional लिख लेते हैं GS भी लिखेंगे. तुक्के से selection हो रहा है. And now see GS answer writing, how the market is involved. You have specialized centers for one answer also. एक आंसर लिख के लाओ, हम चेक करेंगे, 50 रुपए दे देना. This is what is happening. You learn ideas because you are operating at one place. See, these ideas cannot be learned by someone who's operating in, say, nearby Gurgaon. उसको नहीं समझ आएगा मार्केट क्या है. क्लस्टर में एक दूसरे से बहुत जल्दी लर्निंग होती है कि क्या गैप्स हैं and what gaps can be fulfilled. You see the level of cuisine available in Rajendra Nagar. Maharashtrian food कहीं नहीं मिलेगा पूरे दिल्ली में. Thalesari है Kerala. You understand that people are coming from different parts. They need different cuisines. This is how the market is developing. Juice corner कोई देख लो. होली खिलाता वो. Next. In the same right, workers and entrepreneurs are more likely to learn from each other. Workers and entrepreneurs are more likely to learn from each other. Firms can engage in collective action. Firms can engage in collective action to overcome common constraints. Firms can engage in collective action to overcome common constraints such as contract enforcement. Overcome common constraints such as contract enforcement. Is it clear how common constraints union ban jata in markets ka? Trade union and all unions when you are located at one place. Write down next. When firms locate in a cluster, a pool of worker emerges. A pool of worker emerges, making it easier to hire new workers. Making it easier to hire new workers and facilitating better matching of workers and facilitating better matching of workers to jobs. Matching workers to jobs. Is it clear how clusters can help? So if by chance you don't clear mains, you can get a job in Vision as a paper checker. Matching workers to jobs, creating more jobs. This is how cluster helps if you stay at one place. Is it clear how cluster is helping? Write down one more. Clusters also provide an opportunity for new business by understanding the gaps of the market. Is it clear what are clusters? How they help? Now write special economic zones. Clusters in India, economic zones. Special economic zone SEZ is a specifically delineated duty free enclave which is deemed to be a foreign territory for the purpose of trade duties and tariffs. For the purpose of trade duties and tariffs. This means all the production of SEZ is meant for exports and any interaction with the domestic area will involve tariffs. डेफिनेटली हम एक्सपोर्ट भी तो कर रहे हैं, तो इंपोर्ट फ्री करना है, एक्सपोर्ट करना है. आइडिया इज इंपोर्ट अगर आप रॉ मटेरियल का करो, वैलिडेशन इंडिया में करो, तो इट्स अ बेनिफिशियल थिंग. यू कांट हैव एवरीथिंग इंपोर्टेड इन द यू कांट हैव डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्शन ऑफ एवरीथिंग. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इंडिया इज वन ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट इंपोर्टर ऑफ क्रूड ऑयल बट ऑल्सो हैज रिफाइनिंग कैपेसिटी. तो वो जो रिफाइनिंग हो रही है वो इंडिया में वैल्यू एडिशन है ना. एक्सपोर्ट की अर्निंग हमारी है, अगर उस प्रोसेस में जॉब क्रिएशन होता वो भी हमारा है. यू कांट हैव अ क्लोज्ड इकोनॉमी एनी मोर. नेक्स्ट राइट, NIMZ, नेशनल इन्वेस्टमेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग जोन. National Investment Manufacturing Zone. It is a greenfield integrated township. You understand now greenfield? Greenfield and brownfield. Brownfield means already existing, modification happens. Greenfield means from the scratch. It's a greenfield integrated township that will cluster small and large manufacturers at one place. that will cluster small and large manufacturers at one place. It will have a minimum area of 5,000 hectares. And the state governments would be responsible. For providing the basic infrastructure. State government would be responsible for providing the basic infrastructure. Is this clear how cluster-based industrial development is we are trying? SEZ and the difference between the two is clear. SEZ is a foreign territory meant only for exports. NIMZ both domestic and exports. Both things can happen from NIMZ. Now this is the policy of industrialization till 2011. NIMZ was part of the National Manufacturing Policy 2011. Things will change after 2014. 2014, Make in India. We'll discuss after a break. Make in India में भी शेर आता ना एक टाइगर शेर आया. काफी कैपिटल इंटेंसिव है ना, पेट्रोलियम और जेम्स एंड ज्वेलरी इन सब में. फार्मा वार्मा में कब आ रहा है पैसा? तभी आ रहा है ना, पर मोस्टली लेबर इंटेंसिव में नहीं आया, कैपिटल इंटेंसिव में आया. आर द पॉलिसीज क्लियर? एनी डाउट्स? यू वांट अ ब्रेक फॉर हाफ एन आवर और 1 आवर? थोड़ा आराम से रिलैक्स. पॉपकॉर्न की मशीन भी यहाँ लगवाता है. हाँ, कॉफी? Okay, I'll forward the request. And tell us what coffee you want. Cappuccino, Americano, क्या चाहिए? बिना चीनी के. Hot coffee और एक मसाजर और थोड़े पैर वैर भी दबा दे कोई आगे. बहुत मेहनत करके आ रहे हो ना, यहाँ भी बहुत मेहनत है. Anything else? Hot towels, spa? हाँ? What? कैंटीन, हर चीज चाहिए. ओके. क्लस्टर. Now next is Make in India 2015. Any idea what was happening in Make in India? एक बहुत बड़ा लायन भी आया था Make in India के साथ. What is Make in India? Self-reliant, not self-reliant. पफ, अच्छा सिगरेट भी चाहिए वहाँ. हाँ. Incentivize foreign companies. Anything else? FDI limits. In the countries itself. See, the problem which we are dealing is that manufacturing in India is adding only what, 16% to GDP. This was 91, this is 2015, this is today also. In fact, today it's fallen 13 to 14%. And this manufacturing addition to GDP by China, South Korea, and any of these countries is in the range of 35 to 40%. And why manufacturing is important? Because manufacturing tradable goods, manufacturing productivity, and manufacturing also creates jobs. So the two problems in India were that manufacturing output was not increasing. We were consistent at 16% to GDP. We wanted to improve this to 25%, and we also had an idea that we are going to create more jobs because Indian economy does not have jobs. Now this was not being, we were not being able to achieve this because of the previous policies. The previous policies being the industrial policy of 91, and next we introduced national manufacturing policy of 2011. This policy did not get a lot of time, so not a lot of effort or focus was here. This policy had a lot of time, but this policy led to ease of entry barriers, which we discussed, did not provide further conditions. So most of the industry that got developed in India was mostly capital intensive, import intensive. We did not have labor intensive industry development after 91. We had capital intensive and import intensive. Consider which are the four exported items from India, manufactured goods. It's petroleum, it's engineering goods, it's pharmaceutical, and gems and jewelry. Apart from gems and jewelry, the three sectors do not create substantial jobs. Gems and jewelry, yes, it is a skilled activity, it can create jobs. So the top four exports from India are mostly capital intensive and import intensive. It does not create jobs. So the problem is manufacturing output is not there and the jobs are also not created. In this context, we have Make in India. Make in India has four major policy approaches which it is trying to do across four domains. Now the first thing which it introduced, which the government under Make in India is what they call these four approaches, was first we are going to introduce what they called as new processes. सबके आगे new है अब, new India, new process, new everything. Prime Minister एक रहेगा बस. New process, that is not going to change. Now new process, what was new process? What was realized in these 25 years was that regulation environment in India was very difficult. So under new processes, the government said we are going to improve the regulatory environment in the country. Now how are we going to improve the regulatory environment? The government targeted one specific report of the World Bank, that was World Bank Ease of Doing Business report. Now World Bank Ease of Doing Business report in 2014, India's ranking was 144. We wanted to improve the ease of doing business across various indicators. There are 10 different indicators here. So what the government did was, government highlighted each and every ministry and gave them a target of improving each and every indicator here. And within a matter of few years, the government rank or the India's rank came from 144 to 66. So we were trying to improve the regulatory environment by having different policies. Various examples, what government did here was, it improved the taxation policy by introducing GST. It introduced a new policy for exit laws. Exit laws in India were the most cumbersome, which was very difficult to exit the Indian market. They introduced a insolvency bankruptcy code in 2016. Then the government also had a new policy on intellectual property right. To have better investment and administrative procedures for startups, the government started a policy of Startup India, tax incentives, single window clearances. Not just this, the government across the administrative chain started talking about single window clearance, that we are going to get the approvals for anything with ease. So under new process, the government tried to improve the regulatory environment by improving the administrative procedures, by introducing such laws, and also this. Not only this, infrastructure wise also they were improving. So the first the problem that was tackled was improving the regulatory environment under new processes. The second thing which the government focused on was improving infrastructure. This is what they called as new infrastructure. Now this new infrastructure, the government tackled everything, not just the physical infrastructure, even your digital infrastructure was being built. All of the across the spectrum, roads, high-speed rail, and even water connectivity. The government after 2015 started talking about inland waterways in India. They passed a bill, designated certain inland waterways as national waterways and started developing them. National Waterway 1 has already been created. Haldia to Paradeep, this Ganga wala belt. Ganga to this Allahabad to West Bengal. So this has already been started. World Bank has supported this project. So all of these significant highways and expressways are being built. A lot of projects, and this is something where the government has achieved a lot, has given a lot of infrastructure, even in rail, Vande Bharat and high-speed trains. The government is talking about water transport, even digital transport. The government is talking about smart cities, National Optical Fiber Network, BharatNet. So a lot of infrastructure projects, because we understood from this 25-year experience that industry is not coming in India because problem is at regulatory end and the problem is at infrastructure. In fact, the government last year also came out with a logistics policy. This is very important. Isme the government introduced the concept of logistics parks, integrated multimodal logistics park. Multimodal logistics park means that you will have a combination of different modes, not just road. We'll have combination of road, rail and water together, whichever is the most efficient. Common places pe we are going to have storage spaces, which makes logistics easy. So government is spending a lot on logistics policies to improve infrastructure in the country. This is one example. In fact, one policy itself to improve the administration of infrastructure. The government has introduced Gati Shakti. Last year, 2022, there was a 15 or a 10 marker question on Gati Shakti itself. This because logistics is very important. Without logistics, infrastructure is always going to be industry investment is always going to be a problem. So the government focus improving the regulatory environment and improving the infrastructure. The third thing which it was focusing on is what the government called as new sectors. Now what the government approach here was that all of the countries which have grown in industry, they have not grown in all type of industry, they have had certain specific focus on certain sectors. Until and unless you have focus on certain sectors, you will not be able to grow. For example, Japan, Taiwan or even South Korea, they first started with textile. They started with footwear. Now why these two are important? Because these two sectors, textile and footwear, the skill level required is less. So it is easier for the workforce to move from agriculture to these sectors. Plus these sectors are labor intensive, will create a lot of jobs and have a lot of export potential. Because clothing and footwear is something which people will always require throughout the world. So this is skill is required is less, job creation will happen and also a very huge potential for export. Low end. Once you grow here, you move to other high-end manufacturing. So the government also started focusing on certain sectors, and Make in India, the government said, we are going to have specific policies for sectors. Previous ones which are there, we are going to improve them. And 25 sectors were brought under focus. Make in India highlighted 25 sectors where the government is going to have a focused approach, provide policies here. And the last thing which the government talked about was change of mindset. The government said the mindset, that is the interaction of the industry with the government, is that we have a mindset of red tape. That the industry sees government as a very big regulator which is making business for them difficult. So this is how we will improve. We will move from red tape to red carpet. This is what the Prime Minister said, introducing the scheme, that we are going to move away from red tape to red carpet. We will not act as a regulator, but we will act as a facilitator. This one was a major shift because it was a clear signal from the government that it's not just Make in India by the domestic players. Make in India is also for foreign players. Other players should come in India and start investing in India, create jobs here. Make in India was not just for domestic but also foreign. And under this, the government took out a lot of reforms. We liberalized a lot of FDI norms. A lot of FDI in sectors were made 100%, 75% and also automatic approvals, so that it is easier for the people to invest in India. Not just this, there was one board which was created in 91 called the Foreign Investment Promotional Board. Remember Manmohan Singh government? Finance Minister Manmohan Singh, he created this. Now the government thought this body is becoming permission centric and is stopping investments from coming in India. The government abolished this board in 2016 and introduced a new body called Invest India. So now we have a new promotion body, facilitation body called Invest India. Why this is important? If someone from outside wants to come, he wants information about your country, he wants to know the policy, he wants to know the potential. All the information about the country is going to be available at this facilitation center. This is a facilitation body, and not only this, that they are going to ask information, they are the ones which are going to conduct exhibitions, fairs in outside country to bring investments. They are going to conduct a lot of marketing exercise for Indian economy, that you can come here and invest in India. So this Invest India is now the promotion body which is going to bring in foreign direct investment. No longer do we have the Foreign Investment Promotional Board. Not just this, the government realized that there are few countries from where FDI is quite significant. So why not improve their processes further? Government created two bodies under the Department for Promotion of Industrial Trade, DPIT. One was called as Japan Plus and the other was called as Korea Plus. This was made so that any investment coming from these two countries gets fast-tracked, is not in the bureaucratic maze. Invest India and rest of the process might take time. This body specially created for the investments coming from these two bodies. So the whole idea was that the government is going to act as a facilitator, is going to create conditions for you so that you can invest. So the government working on four ends: new mindset, new sectors, New infrastructure and new processes. This is how the whole business environment was to be improved so that new investments happen in the country. This is why we had few success also. A lot of mobile manufacturing units, assembly units started operating in India. Along with this, we provided them other production linked incentives also, but we definitely saw some success on this front. But the problem that manufacturing addition to GDP and job is still not solved. The problem still remains. Few successes, but largely this Make in India has been a failure. A failure because the government itself is not talking about this policy anymore. There are few things about the government which they're not even talking about, Make in India, even demonetization. They're not even counting that as a success because the job creation has not happened. The manufacturing output still is stagnant. Why would this fail? Understand what is happening. Now, when we are doing ease of doing business, this ease of doing business report was cancelled in 2019 because the methodology was flawed. There were a lot of errors in this report, which we are targeting, it is flawed. And also whatever we are implementing here, this is right now in paper. The implementation on ground is not as same as what is in paper. Consider the implementation of GST itself. It created a lot of problems, did not solve any. Because in the initial 2 years, the rules kept on changing. So a lot of business environment changed on paper, nothing changed substantially on ground. New infrastructure, though the government has created a lot of infrastructure, the quantity has been very good, the quality has been substandard. Also, the timelines are not being met. For example, waterways, most of the inland waterways are not being created. Logistics, especially in rail, has not improved. The only thing where we have moved on a very fast pace is highways and expressways, but their quality also. In fact, if there are so many news articles, you'll see, okay, inauguration of the road, they've broken the coconut toota nahi, road toot gayi. So a lot of times, problems have happened and roads have been washed away because quality is a concern. So infrastructure has improved in terms of quantity, but quality still remains a concern. Talking about sectors, when we talk about focused approach, we need to have a focused approach for 3 sectors, 4 sectors, 5 sectors. And when we are saying 25 sectors, that means there's no focus. You can't have too much of sectors here. Too much of sectors means you're not focusing on anything. This is why the policy will change from this to PLI, where we'll only target 3 sectors in the beginning. We have to start with small approach because focus आप 3 पे 25 पे नहीं कर सकते हो. And this new mindset, though the government talked about red carpet, the problem is if the business environment doesn't change on ground, this red carpet is still not a red tape, it's red carpet is still far from reality. अब इसमें हुआ क्या है? Red carpet has been opened only for few people. When the government said red tape to red carpet, बताया नहीं कि किसके लिए है. So there have been instances where rules have been changed for few people. So that means the policy is not stable right now. If the policy is not stable, people from outside country will not invest. Read the newspaper, Japan and Korea itself are complaining in the last 15 days that the policy is not stable, PLI payments atki hui hai, we don't know what the future looks like. So this, because regulatory environment has not significantly changed, this has also not seen a drastic change. This is why jobs have not come, investment have been very minimal in very few sectors. This is why Make in India did not click. Is this clear what is Make in India? Yes. What? Yeah, we can. This is what Raghuram Rajan has been consistently saying. Why is the government not providing skills for services where in the lower end services you can do? Because manufacturing is seeing a problem and manufacturing ka saturation aa chuka hai. You cannot create a lot of things in manufacturing, and if you will create, you will only exploit the labor. Services problem is skills. Especially soft skills. Even if you go for a haircut, definitely says haircut or various other services, tourism, healthcare, इसमें services बन सकती हैं. But do the people have those skills? Not just the skills required to do the work, even the soft skill they are missing. The behavioral parameters. How do you teach those soft skills to people? This is a problem in services. Manufacturing is easy. Textile machine पे काम करना है. Very less amount of soft skills would be required. So there are problems in services. Do we have the skills for it? Nothing can beat manufacturing. Manufacturing has to happen because you will not have jobs if there's no manufacturing. This is labor intensive. Services beyond a point is not. Labor intensity has to come from here because if you're labor intensive, you get a job, you get income, you move ahead in life, you learn new things. This is where you can transition to services. You can't just transition from agriculture directly to services. You would need skill. And even for providing services, to whom are you providing those services? Services has one major problem. IT sector ki services are tradable, that you can export. Rest of the services, for example, hotels, how will you export? For example, barber or a cook, how will you export? Manufacturing produces everything that is exportable. Manufacturing is production of goods, which anything can be traded. Tradable goods. So there is a lot of opportunities in manufacturing, and even for services sector, even if you have high-tech computers and your mobile phones, from where are you going to build them? It is going to happen in the factory. So without a factory, you are not going to get anything. You're not going to have jobs. You're not going to have any productivity improvements. There will be saturation. It has to. Without manufacturing, this is why this is very quite substantial. Manufacturing addition to GDP, it has to go here. We are stuck in here. You have to produce in the country, and country which has a very good demographic dividend, has all the conditions, is mostly because of policies and infrastructure. State ke role ki wajah se manufacturing is being left out. Is it clear? Is anything in India successful? You know a successful services sector. और इंडिया की टीम जीतेगी अभी वर्ल्ड कप. राइट डाउन मेक इन इंडिया. मैच शेड्यूल हारेगी पर इंडिया. राइट डाउन मेक इन इंडिया. पक्का हारेगी. वेरी गुड. पाकिस्तान भेज दें तुम्हें. राइट मेक इन इंडिया. मेक इन इंडिया एम्ड एट इंक्रीजिंग. This is a department for promotion of investment and trade. This is a department under Ministry of Commerce. उसके अंदर जापान प्लस एंड कोरिया प्लस बनाए हैं for facilitating investments from these two countries. I don't make in India. Make in India aim to increase the manufacturing sector growth. It aim to increase the manufacturing sector growth to 12 to 14% per annum. At 12 to 14% per annum. And achieve a 25% contribution to GDP by 2025. And achieve 25% contribution to GDP by 2025. It also aimed to create 100 million additional jobs. Also aimed to create 100 million additional jobs. $100 million additional jobs in manufacturing by 2022. In manufacturing by 2022. It had 4 major features. Make in India had 4 major features. First, new processes. Where the policy recognized ease of doing business. Where the policy recognized ease of doing business. As the single most important factor. Recognize ease of doing business as the single most important factor to promote entrepreneurship. To promote entrepreneurship. The objective was to improve. The objective was to improve regulatory policies. Regulatory policies during the entire life cycle of a business. During the entire life cycle of the business, of a business. So these were the examples under new process. GST, Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, Startup India, IPR, Intellectual Property Right Policy was introduced in 2016 under the same. So you can write down these examples also. GST, IBC, IPR, Startup India, single window clearances, etc. In fact, to push the investment, the government also reduced the taxes. Corporate tax were reduced. That was a single major step. but still investment did not happen. Next, new infrastructure. Where the government intended to develop high speed communication and integrated logistic arrangements. High speed communication and integrated logistics arrangements. Next, new sectors. Where the government identified 25 sectors for targeted and focused development. 25 sectors for targeted and focused development. Next, new mindset. Where the government intended to bring a paradigm change. Or paradigm shift in how the government interacts with the industry. Paradigm change or paradigm shift in how the government interacts with the industry. The approach will be that of a facilitator and not a regulator. In bracket write down, that is moving from red tape to red carpet. आधी बार तो red carpet was for own self. The significant emphasis was to bring in foreign sector investments. FDI. Is this clear what is happening in Make in India? Now 2020, the government introduces a new policy called as Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now Atmanirbhar Bharat, the major policy tool which was announced by the government is called as production linked incentive. Now what is production linked incentive? The government started with production linked incentive in 3 sectors, now has shifted to 14 sectors, and it is available both to domestic and foreign players. This is what UPSC asked this year, 2023 prelims. Production linked incentive firms, both domestic and foreign, can take benefits. Yes, both foreign and domestic firms can take benefit under production linked incentive. Now what is the idea here in production linked incentive? More production, more incentive. What else? English की translation करके दिखा रहे हो यार, मतलब. Why specifically this approach? See, the idea was that whatever policies we have followed till date, now this policy, all of these policies were centered around broadly improving manufacturing sector. This was not a targeted or a focused approach. This was missing. What we were doing is broadly improving the regulatory environment and also improving the infrastructure. NIMZ was part of this. Under this you had specifically for regulation. NMP may be there features for improving regulation. Sorry. Now the problem is when we are giving the benefits to the whole sector, we are not seeing any improvement in investments. Now the government thinks what has happened in rest of the world, there have been few firms who have been responsible for development of those sectors in other countries. There are only few large firms which have the capacity to compete with rest of the world, and they are the ones which have the capacity to produce. The production is so high that they can compete and also they can create jobs. Then why not we also have focus on only few firms in few sectors, not giving benefits to all. And these benefits now will be concentrated, or benefits will be in quantitative terms. We are not talking about general benefits, a single window clearance. The government approach under PLI is that we have to focus on few firms in few sectors only, which have the capacity to produce and also compete in the global world and also will create jobs. This is what the government called as national champions. The government said that we are going to target certain specific players in certain specific sectors who are going to improve the production, compete globally, give production benefits to the country and also exports. Compete means not just domestically but also has a lot of export potential. And on the same hand, they will also create jobs, because small units or even medium units, when we were trying to increase investment, did not create substantial jobs. So why not target certain specific firms which are going to give you the benefits? This is the policy of creating national champions, because these national champions are the ones who are going to compete with the rest of the players in the outside world. Because if Samsung or any other big player is competing, your small players will not be able to compete. Give benefits to the national champions who are going to compete externally also. So under this, the government introduced production linked incentive. Now what was this production linked incentive? Any particular firm, first the government started for 3 sectors. The most benefits the government got in mobile manufacturing. In those sectors, we are going to select, the firm is going to give an application to the government that we want to get the incentives under PLI. The government is going to process the application, and if the firm gets selected, this firm will be given a target. A target could be based on their turnover or could be based on their production, but both incremental. That means कि अगर आप 100 प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हो तो नेक्स्ट टर्नओवर है, नेक्स्ट उस पे प्रोडक्शन पे टारगेट होगा, इस पे 100 पे नहीं होगा. For example, incremental production means if you're already producing 100 units, the target will be of 120 or 140. 100 production पे आपको कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, incremental production पे आपको कुछ मिलेगा. So what the government said, we are going to select a firm, we are going to set you targets, and if the targets are achieved, we are going to give you benefits. And incentives can come in form of tax breaks or money in form of other subsidies, but you are going to get incentives which are specifically in quantitative terms. This incentive could be decided by the government, could be anything. So under production linked incentive, the whole idea of the government was we want to create national champions in particular sectors which are going to compete globally and also create manufacturing capacity in my own country, creating jobs. Because targeting the sector as a whole, we have not got any benefits. We started with 3 sectors. We got benefits under mobile manufacturing. A lot of players came in India, started assembling mobile phones, and therefore we got extended now to 14 sectors. Because under the idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat, the broader idea is that we have to become self-reliant. See, there's another word which is self-sufficient. We are not trying to become self-sufficient. Self-sufficient means we are going to have whatever we have. We were not going to depend on someone. Self-reliance means we are going to improve our domestic capacity. Our domestic production capacity is going to improve. We are not going to depend a lot on imports. Atmanirbhar Bharat doesn't mean that India is a closed economy. We are going to import, we are going to export, but we are going to focus on increasing our domestic capacity. We are going to focus on creating national champions. So what we are seeing कि monopoly हो रही है, कुछ ही players को हो रहा है, ये design से है. This is by design. The government wants to give to certain units only because we think they have the capacity. तो अगर fast job creation करनी है, fast production capacity बढ़ानी है, तो bigger firms को ही उठाना पड़ेगा. We have to pick the champions and further help them create capacities. This is production linked incentive. Is it clear what is happening? Now what is the problem? What are the concerns with this approach? There are a lot of concerns which have been highlighted about PLI. Monopoly. See, monopoly, whenever it gets created, it's the role of Competition Commission of India. तो आपका regulation कैसा है, वो monopoly control कर लेगा. It's not necessary that monopoly is bad for business. Remember, we have independent sector regulators. One of the regulator is who, what? इसकी effectiveness पे question है कि वो monopoly exploit करेगी कि नहीं. So it's about competition commission, how well it functions in your country. It's not about the scheme that the scheme is creating monopoly like pressure. Scheme though is trying to improve the domestic production capacity. If they're exploiting you, see there are two things where they can't exploit. One, if they start exporting, तो अगर उनका product competitive नहीं होगा तो export होगा ही नहीं. Because global world will not accept your product if you're not competitive. You can only sell higher cost, poor quality in the domestic country. So they will be forced to compete when they're exporting. And secondly, it's the role of your competition. This is definitely a problem. See what happened in China and Japan and South Korea. Japan and South Korea also had these units which became very big, called national champions or monopolistic players. They were called as zaibatsus in Japan and called as chaebols in Korea. And Samsung is a very big chaebol. In fact, Samsung has a lot of integration with politics also. Samsung influences the political environment of South Korea. These were called as the national champions, monopoly players. Japan, they were called as zaibatsus and chaebols in South Korea. Now, why they did not exploit their own domestic population? Because both of these monopolies were first made to export. The South Korean government forced Samsung to export. What happens is, when any player becomes big, what they try to do is, they try to squeeze out their producers, their raw material. For example, Samsung is taking certain battery from a producer. तो Samsung profit ऐसे नहीं बनाएगा कि process improve करे. Samsung is battery manufacturer का profits खाएगा. This is what big players do. This will be stopped only if you have good regulation. So what South Korea has done is, they have good regulation and also they made their players to export. That meant they were always competitive and productive. They were not exploiting. So if India also does it for its national champions, it makes them export those goods and also regulation is good. This is not a monopoly threat. It all depends on whether they are productive, competitive via exports and what the regulation is. Both these things are the inspiration why we are creating national champions. Japan and South Korea both have big players called as zaibatsus in Japan and chaebols, और इनका काफी influence है. Regulation is good. How we come to know, Samsung के a lot of top officials have been jailed in the past also because of certain corruption. So if you have good regulation, you don't have threat of monopoly if you follow this. Make them export. Your product will only be bought in the export market if you are productive. It will not be bought if it is poor quality. Second, have good regulation so that it doesn't exploit the domestic players like this. Is it clear how monopoly is not a threat? There are other problems with PLI. Monopoly can be controlled by this. What are the problems? Do you see any significant problem here? क्वालिटी कैसे, वो तो हमने ही करना है ना. और क्वालिटी अगर आपका खरीदेगा कौन प्रोडक्ट? अगर आप ज़्यादा बना रहे हो, nobody is going to buy your product. What are you going to do with the incentive? Even if you take the incentive from the government, if you produce a poor quality product, do you think people are going to buy that poor quality product? So there's no benefit there. Increase in? How? Yes, one problem. But the basic problem is, we discussed before 91, India had very poor productivity. Why? Because we had involvement of bureaucracy. There was a lot of red tapeism because bureaucratic discretion was involved. There were a lot of norms which had to be followed. There were rules. Are we not involving the bureaucracy yet again? Who selects the firm? Who sets the target? And who sees whether the target has been achieved or not? This is why South Korea is complaining कि हमारे को अभी तक PLI के पैसे मिले नहीं हैं. That means you are further giving bureaucracy a chance to create red tapeism. And when you are creating opportunities for red tapeism, you are creating opportunities for rent seeking. This is what South Korea and Japan both have complained in the last 1 month, that our PLI payments are still stuck because you are involving the interface of administration. Bureaucratic Raj was the problem before 91. You are again involving bureaucracy. In fact, there have been a lot of fiascos in selecting PLI firms also. Battery manufacturer of UK or I think Europe ki one of the countries, Hyundai was the name of the company and the government gave the approval. Next day, Hyundai Motors gave a clarification, हम same नहीं हैं. The government realized ये क्या हो गया है. The government cancelled the notice. So the government even didn't know कि कौन सी firm ने apply की है, whether it is Hyundai Automobiles or someone else with the same name. If the clarification would not have come, PLI application was processed. So bureaucratic involvement means discretion, means red tape, means opportunities for rent seeking. Another problem with PLI is that the government has selected 14 sectors. Out of these 14 sectors, only 3 sectors are labor intensive. That means roughly 10 to 11 sectors are what? Then how are we expecting? If the government is spending huge money in giving incentive to the firms, at least we need to have a target on how jobs will be created. Only 3 sectors are labor intensive. That means majority of the government money will be spent on sectors which are capital intensive, again not giving benefit to the population. India has seen a problem of industrialization after 91, that India has not seen labor intensive growth. If you're not again targeting labor intensive, there only one part, you're not going to create jobs. So who is going to create jobs under this? But the biggest problem under PLI is that right now we have selected certain firms and the firms are getting incentives to produce. That means unka cost advantage aa raha because of incentives. If you stop the incentive, the firms can threaten exit from India. कि अगर आपने incentive रोके, I'm going to Vietnam. Who is stopping the firm from shifting? Right now, manufacturing capacities, since you're not making the whole product, you're only making one part, it's easier to shift. Now, what stops the company from shifting? And if you are threatening exit, that means the government has to give the incentives for how many time? They are always going to threaten exit if you stop the incentive. That means all of this production you are going to have is not because the firm is getting productive. It's happening because the firm is getting in. The same thing that happened with a lot of subsidies given by the government. Can you find an exit to this subsidy? It's very difficult because the firm is always going to threaten an exit. That means a lot amount of government revenue has gone to the firm without giving any substantial benefits to the government. 5 साल तक भी incentives दिए और फिर रोक दिए, ये firm निकल गई. That means 5 years the money has been given for what? This is the biggest problem in PLI, that you are giving specific incentives to firms. If you stop doing it, they are going to leave your country. That means you have to perpetually provide them these incentives. And what is the cost of this? Are you getting jobs? And second thing is, what is the cost of the incentives? Are you getting any technology? This is the second biggest problem of PLI. कि अगर आप incentive firms को दे रहे हो, what is the value addition this firm is doing? This might be just assembling the parts. For example, Apple is saying that we want PLI for mobile phone assembly. Apple ka most of the production cost comes from its design. 2/3 of the Apple cost is design, intellectual property. 1/3 of the Apple cost, the mobile phone, comes from manufacturing. Manufacturing, maybe we are not manufacturing any part, we are only having assembly. That means the government is spending a lot of money where the jobs is questionable and the value addition is only assembly. That is the lowest part of value chain. So both technology wise and cost wise, you are not getting anything. And then also the firm is saying that we are going to exit. Mobile phone also, if MI is manufacturing, is mostly making assembly. It's not creating a lot of technology here in the country. Technology, everything is importing from China. So you are doing something at the lowest value chain, which means even if jobs are created, it's exploitation. You're not creating good quality jobs because technology itself is not there. So these are some of the concerns highlighted for PLI. How are you going to manage bureaucracy? Where is the job creation? And firms is going to go out of control if you don't provide. And if you're providing, what is the cost you are taking? When there's no job and you are at the lower end of the value chain, you are just assembling the parts. China for the last 10 years has been stuck in the lower end of the value chain. It is not able to move ahead. We are trying to become another China. We are trying to become again stuck in the lower end of the value chain. We are not moving up of the value chain. We are not becoming this is what a lot of commentators on the Indian economy have said. You are trying to become the serfs of the world. Serf, remember slave? You're trying to become the serfs of the world. You are not trying to become the brain of the world. India always had the advantage of skilled labor in services. This is why we had service growth, we had export. Now in manufacturing specifically, you are trying to become the slaves of the world by just assembling the parts. You are not having good technology. So is it a good thing? Because this money can be used somewhere else. Is it giving you enough? that you are spending money. This is the concerns which are raised for PLI. If the government is successful in removing the bureaucratic tape, creating jobs and also making the firms on a higher end, क्योंकि firm select government नहीं करनी है, then we'll have benefits. But these are some of the concerns with production linked incentives. Is this clear? What is PLI scheme? What are the concerns? Write down this. हाँ, वो तो डी रिजर्वेशन है ना कि अब हम नहीं करेंगे, प्राइवेट सेक्टर आके परफॉर्म करे. डी रिजर्वेशन तो हमने 91 से स्टार्ट कर दिया. आई टोल्ड यू ओनली 2 सेक्टर्स आर रिजर्व्ड नाउ, atomic energy and railway operation. Rest all are open. So that is involving private sector participation. But space sector में भी अगर private sector आता है, jobs बनाएगा, क्या करेगा space sector में? You can only talk about those things कि मार्स पे पहुंच गया, मून पे. What exactly is the benefit received by the people? Chandrayaan hai, it's a national pride that yes, we are on the frontier of technology, but what benefit are the people getting right now? We might get benefits 10 years, 15 years later. Definitely some things we can find and then definitely can benefit. Right now, is it creating job for anyone? प्रॉब्लम तो ये है ना कि 45% वनरेबिलिटी इतनी पॉपुलेशन में, तो आज भूखे मर रहे हैं, चांद का क्या देखेंगे? Right now, who's hungry, who knows he's vulnerable, what exactly is he going to do with ISRO or private player making a satellite? Does he have the mobile phone to use the internet? तो उनके लिए क्या यही मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की जॉब बनाएगी उनके लिए? Ladder to growth is manufacturing. No economy in the world has grown without manufacturing. Ladder to growth goes through manufacturing. Without this, you're not going to get any development. You follow any strategies, without this, you're not going to get any growth because jobs will not be created. And if jobs are not created, development for whom? Question last में तो यही आता है ना. What is India? What is India? Is a voice. Rahul Gandhi. It's 140 crore people. It's not just 1% who is getting everything, who have a lot of growth. You can't say that we have 8%, 10%, third largest GDP. You already know what third largest GDP means. If people at the bottom are not getting anything, that means there's no India, there's no growth. When there is so much of conflict का हमेशा economic reasons से start होता है. Jobs मिलेगी, nobody wants to fight. If you don't have jobs, गाड़ी लग गई, मार रहे हैं लोग एक दूसरे को. परेशान है ना हर जगह से, सिर्फ घर से नहीं और जगह से भी. So this is what economic growth not happen, you will always have conflicts. Opposition alliance, अरे लिखो production linked incentive. Production linked incentive. The incentives given by the government, are directly linked to the production capacity. Or the incremental turnover. It has three major pillars. First, creation of large-scale manufacturing capacities. In bracket, write down national champions. Large-scale manufacturing capacities. National champion, that is national champion. Second, import substitution and increase in exports. And increase in exports. See, this is what I meant by increasing domestic capacity. This domestic capacity means no import dependence and increase export, क्योंकि domestic capacity increase कर रही है. Third, creation of 60 lakh new jobs in the next 5 years. Creation of 60 lakh new jobs in the next 5 years. In the next line, right? The scheme has been announced for 14 sectors. where the government will be selecting the firms, and setting the targets for them. Where the government will be selecting the firms and setting the targets for them. The next line, however, there are certain concerns regarding the scheme. First, involvement of bureaucracy in selecting the firms, finalizing the targets, and also monitoring the achievements. Involvement of bureaucracy in selecting the firms, finalizing the targets, and also monitoring the achievements means creating opportunities for corruption and red tape. Opportunities for corruption and red tape or red tapeism. Second, most of the sectors are capital intensive sectors. Having less potential for employment generation. Most of the sectors are capital intensive sectors having less potential for employment generation. Third, there are concerns regarding the exit from the scheme. As the firms might lobby for continuous support. And may threaten exit from India if support is withdrawn. Firms might lobby for continuous support and may threaten exit from India if support is withdrawn. Next, it might degenerate the manufacturing units. Degenerate the manufacturing units into the assembly of imported parts. Degenerate manufacturing units into assembly of imported parts. That is at the lowest end of the value chain. Providing no technology. Is this clear? What is PLI and what are the concerns associated? Is it clear? National champions ही क्यों बनाएंगे? Because they are the ones who can compete globally. Because India has seen in the last 25 years, if you have provided support to manufacturing, we are not able to compete with the China's imports. Compete कौन करेगा? National champions. So let us support the national champions. They are the ones who are going to compete externally and also create jobs. There are two more things which are happening under Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now this is something which the government has not announced, but this is something which we have seen from the various policies stances taken by the government. PLI is the only scheme announced under Atmanirbhar Bharat. These are the two perceived features which we have seen because what the government has been doing. Now, what the government first has been doing, consistently the government has increased the import duties on a range of products. In the last 3 to 4 years, more than 1500 goods, the government has increased the import duties because we want to have domestic value addition. We don't want to focus on, or we don't want imports, domestic value addition. The government is consistently increasing import duties. Now, this is something which the government has not mentioned in any policy, but has been doing consistently. The recent example being laptops, where we are focusing on domestic value addition, focusing on job creation, we are trying to create barriers for imports. And the second thing which India is doing, previously what was happening, a lot of trade blocks, since WTO is not functioning, a lot of countries are now having trade blocks where multiple countries are participating so that there is more trade amongst each other. For example, we have the Trans-Pacific Partnership, we have the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership where you have ASEAN countries and 6 partners. Now what has India done is, India earlier was in the negotiation of RCEP. Also there is Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. India is also negotiating on this, but the trade front of IPEF, India has backed out of negotiations. RCEP also India has backed out. So what India is seeing is that regional trade blocks are not giving a lot of benefits to India. So what we are going to do is, we are going to sign trade agreements only with bilateral players where we have certain benefits. This is the new development that has happened. India was doing a lot of negotiations under the regional trade blocks, and we have realized that regional trade blocks might not give us a lot of benefits. World over, these regional trade blocks have been formed, but India has taken a stance to not participate here. We are going to see our benefits and our drawbacks and then only participate. And if something is not working for us, we will not. What is working for us is bilateral. This is why India in record time, in a matter of 80 days, has negotiated and concluded an agreement with UAE. India UAE CEPA, which is quite comprehensive. We'll discuss these trade agreements in detail when we discuss external sector. But in record time, India has finalized an agreement with UAE. Right now, India is almost on the verge of finalizing agreement with Canada and Australia. Australia ke saath already we have early harvest agreement which we have signed. Canada we are negotiating. European Union we are negotiating, UK we are negotiating. So what India is seeing is we need to see the strengths and then participate. It's not necessary to participate in the regional blocks. World over, regional blocks are getting famous, India is not getting part of it. Both RCP and IPF, India has withdrawn. So under Atmanirbhar Bharat, India is not just focusing on national champions through PLI, it is also moving on domestic value addition by imposing import duties and moving from regional trade blocks to bilateral trading. This is a perceived change. Again, this has not been announced by the government. This is what has been seen what the government is doing under Atmanirbhar Bharat. The only thing that has been announced is production linked incentives. So right now production linked incentives, increase in import duties, and this is happening. This is how we are trying to focus on domestic industry. Is this clear? Write down this. That's different. How is it related here? बिल्कुल अलग है. We'll discuss that also. Power sector infrastructure, you'll understand that in the next slide. Apart from the PLI, the government has been consistently increasing import duties. Apart from the PLI, the government has been consistently increasing import duties for a range of products. So as to increase domestic value addition. So as to increase domestic value addition. Next line. Also, the government is focusing on strengthening bilateral trade. Also, the government is focusing on strengthening bilateral trade and has withdrawn from and has withdrawn from regional trade agreements such as RCEP, regional trade agreements such as RCEP and IPEF, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. RCEP is ASEAN countries plus 6 neighbors. Now they are not 6 neighbors, 5. India has withdrawn. And next is IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Indo-Pacific Economic Framework has different pillars. उसका एक trade pillar है जिसमें India is not participating in negotiations. So we are not part of regional blocks. We are part of bilateral. Quite, it's part of that only. These countries, US, Japan, and all are part of that. Is it clear how what is Atmanirbhar Bharat? Are the industrial policies now clear? What is happening with respect to industry? So now you have a good idea about agriculture and industry, and these are the two portions important for mains because they are mentioned in syllabus. Service sector has not been mentioned, but since service sector is part of the Indian growth story, that is the first topic, you need to have an idea. I've already given you one question. Write down one more. This was asked in 2016. The nature of economic growth in India. The nature of economic growth in India is described as jobless growth. The nature of economic growth in India is described as jobless growth. Do you agree with this view? Give arguments in favor of your answer. Give arguments in favor of your answer. Imagine UPSC is just explicitly write give arguments. ये नहीं लिखते लोग लिखे no I don't agree with this view. So it has to write give arguments in favor whatever you agree and don't agree. This is a 15 marker. Write it in 15 marks. See, broader questions like this have appeared for growth. कि manufacturing productivity है, jobs नहीं है. Mostly questions have been centered around this. I've already told you the questions regarding inclusive growth. Inclusive growth के लिए भी important है. And now specific questions on jobless growth in this. Is industry clear? Industrial policy till date. Next we'll start with the remaining part of planning is left, 8 5-year plan onwards, very half an hour, Niti Aayog. We'll start with inflation and money dynamics now. The Indian growth story is done. One small part of Indian growth story is left, that is the infrastructure, where we are going to discuss two sectors, oil and gas and electricity power. Rest, most of the Indian growth story is done. Next class we will start with inflation also, demand supply. Thank you.